We're gonna get rock and rolling here shortly. Just checking all my levels and everything, making sure it's all good to grow. And we're gonna send it. I got a fat stack of books, so we're gonna be taking a look at those today. All right. How are we doing? Hope everyone is having a good week so far. Yeah, so today we're going to be taking a look at a pretty big haul. I got a fat stack of floppies here that we're going to be taking a look through. I don't know, there's like 10, 15 books here roughly. A bunch of different varieties. So we have basic cartoon stuff. We got superhero stuff, got the MAXX. Of course, I think I already said cartoon stuff, but and then a bunch of indie stuff as well. So just a bunch of different things that we're going to be taking a look at today, and it should be pretty exciting. Probably bring the music down here. All right. Let's get this rocking and rolling then. Move my mug. Set that down here. All right. So I guess the first thing that we're gonna pop into here is gonna be some Wolf and Red. This is a Tex Avery comic. I'm a big fan of Tex Avery. This was put out through Dark Horse back in the 90s. I want to say this is like an early to mid 90s book, probably pretty early. Yeah, it's 95. I have number 2 of this. The owner at the comic shop had stuck this in my pull box for me, and because he just can't get rid of a lot of this stuff, so it just kind of like gets handed off to me, and I read it simply because I'm into the weird stuff. I'm into the cartoon stuff. So anything that's kind of just laying around in the shop that he can't get rid of typically just ends up in my pull box, and I just leave with it. This being one of them. Going through this, so it looks like we have Stephanie Gladden on pencils, and then we have Jim Marassa on the letters and inks. His inking is honestly like pretty nice. I was pretty impressed with the way that it looked. The fat outlines are just chef's kiss, man. Cartooning in this is very, very good as well. I do not remember who originally did that second issue and the third issue of this. It might be the same team. It might be a different team. I honestly do not know. But I think that this is, you know, at the end of the day, it's a well-drawn comic, and the colors in it as well are just pop off the page, and it doesn't look disgusting digital because, you know, this is early digital. So I'd say like comics in between, you know, 89 and 95 just have really rough digital coloring. You know, it was new technology at the time. People were trying to wrap their heads around it, so that's just kind of what it ended up looking like, unfortunately. But they got some variation here in the coloring, which is awesome, because you would think as well, like in cartoon comics, a lot of it is just paint bucket fill, but they got some different gradients and filling and everything like that going on. I did not get a chance to look through these yet. I was kind of saving my reactions or just looks at these while we popped in here and took a look at them. Droopy, it's classic. Big fan of Mike Allred, one of my all-time favorites. Again, as you can see, it's like I'm big into that cartoon style of art. So anything pop art, you know, I'm going to be a big fan of. And then this Godzilla book. I don't think this is the book that Bissett worked on. I want to say that book had come out in 89 or 90. the one that he had drawn. So I can't remember who did this Godzilla run, but the original cassette run that Dark Horse put out is amazing. Okay, so it looks like Jim Marassa just straight up did everything here, pencils and inks. So Stephanie Glidden, I think was her name, isn't on the second story, and you definitely can tell there's a shift in the art style just by a hair. The figure drawing is definitely a lot different. And when you see stuff like this and you're like, man, I need to learn how to draw hands. My hands look terrible. Let's look at stuff like this. It's like she's got, is what I call, these are like Todd McFarlane hands. What I call chicken fingers. Chicken feet hands. Just looks like a chicken foot. It's terrible. And then speaking of Tex Avery, there is a mask ad in here. So obviously there's a big Tex Avery influence on the mask. He is named after Tex Avery in this movie, and then as well, obviously he turns into the wolf at one point when he's horn dogging over Kristen Diaz. So as you can see, very much pulled from that. Cool Ghost in the Shell ad. I thought that was an interesting ad. Kind of a cool image. I feel like it could have been a little more like acidy, you know, because of the alien, but it is what it is. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one here. All right, so we got the MAXX. This is number 3. Of course, Sam Keith is going to be on this. Bill Messner is going to be on your... Actually, I'm going to shut this off so it doesn't glare. Bill Messer was the writer on this, and then it looks like Jim Sinclair... I'm not too sure like what that means by finishes. That's a weird thing that you really don't typically see in comic books, so I'm really not too sure what that really refers to. Because like you got pencils and inks, and then you have dialogue, which is, you know, script, writer, however you want to look at that, and then your lettering and your color. So it's like, that is your team, so what does this mean, like finishes? Was that like possibly like the editor? Turn that back on because we're getting out of the glossy now. But man, I love the MAXX. It's one of my favorite comic books. Sam Keith is a really big influence on me. I still don't think that anybody really has like touched his compositions. Maybe Todd McFarlane to a certain extent with his page layouts, but this dude just has like the most creative page layouts like I've ever seen. Gets away from the basic grid panels and just kind of lets the art do it. Just like, look at this. It's like this weird Native American sort of border thing, and it just fits in with the image. Just super creative. The MAXX is getting harder and harder to find from what I've found. Like, my comic shop rarely ever gets MAXX stuff, and when they do get it, I'm typically the one that's snatching it up from the back issue bins. But it's hard to find it, at least in this area, which is kind of surprising. I mean, I'm sure that the later issues probably didn't sell a lot, but I'm sure that some of those first, you know, starter issues, like anything image-wise around this time, will just sell them like hotcakes simply because it had that image logo on it. And then as well, you know, there was the animated show that they did for a little while for the MAXX. But anytime I see it, I try to snatch it up if I already don't have a copy of it. Man, his cartooning is just insane. Now we're just running into ads, and then the newsletter stuff. Issue 4 will contain a special coupon. Each coupon accompanied by a check for $9 will be worth a copy of the first ever digital stereo recording of a comic book. Image Comics and Animated Alligator have created the MAXX sound, with full audio animation on issues 1, 2, and 3, together all on one cassette. Final orders for MAXX number 4 must be received by June 30th. That's interesting. I mean, that's something that, you know, they've been messing around with in comics a lot. I know that issue number 3 of Nexus, they had put a floppy disk in that. Not a floppy disk, but a floppy record in there. And same thing, you can listen to the comic with the record. Alright, so this is MUCHA LUCHA number 3. I was a big fan of this cartoon growing up. I think I was like 10 or 11. Yeah, it came out in 2003, so I was probably 11 at the time when this cartoon had launched. I'm not entirely sure how long the series ran for. It probably was only like a season or two, I would imagine. But back then, you know, cartoon, like especially like Cartoon Network, I think this was the WB, yeah, show. But even then, they were ordering, you know, 60 episodes at a time, which nowadays a typical season's like 10 to 12 episodes. Back then, they were pulling in like 60 episodes a season. Because they wanted it to run in syndication. So that was the best way to do it. Hey, order it up front, get a big chunk of it, and then if it doesn't last or if it's not super popular, at least we have a library of things, you know, we can sell on video, we can sell on DVD, we can run on syndication. Nowadays, obviously, putting it up on Tubi or Netflix or whatever on streaming services to kind of get the momentum running that way and still making money off of older properties that might be defunct. Or maybe it wasn't popular, still kind of profiting off of things that were made. So that was a way to do so, is just ordering a lot of episodes up front. Obviously, they're not really going to take the risk of that anymore because, you know, media, especially just basic TV outside of Netflix and those bigger streaming services, nobody cares about network TV for the most part. It's like, especially people my age, it's like you just don't have cable. There's other ways to view what you need to watch. Man, the clamshell SP, what a system. What a system. Oh, we didn't even talk about who we got in here. Eddie Mort's the writer. Ricardo Garcia Fuentes is the penciler. Got Mike DiCarlo on inks and Jenna Garcia on the letter. And we got Snow Cone on the color. Literally, that's the name, Snow Cone. But yeah, it looks like it's a bunch of Latino artists and writers and so on and so forth. So, I mean, that's a good group of people to make a comic about wrestling luchas. It's not very often that you get wrestling comic books, especially good ones. So this is... It's always fun to see how people draw and illustrate wrestling in comic books. Because, like I said, it's not something that you see very often, so... Man, seeing some of these like ads, like this packaging, like this, just like fired off a bunch of nostalgia in my head. Cheap ass Lowry's beef sticks. Those things suck. They're just super dry. I don't even think they're a company anymore. Oh, that's a cool page. There's some fun drawings in here, man. Hell yeah, now we're talking. It's a Big League Chew. My boy Sammy Sosa. Got P-Rod. King Griffey. Mike Piazza. Yeah, this is an awesome book, and it's like you don't have to do anything super crazy with backgrounds, and like they get away with just like stuff like this. Scooby-Doo comics, which I think I just own some of those older like Hanna-Barbera things that they put out through Gold Key. It's probably about it in terms of like the Scooby-Doo stuff that I own, unless they're in like weird one-off books or whatever. Powerpuff Girls, I'm big on the Dynamite books, and like it was close to my book of the year last year, but I would say the Space Ghost run again. I was on it nonstop, but I'm still on it nonstop. Obviously, it's like the Space Ghost is so good. So the Dynamite stuff, highly recommend it, especially the Powerpuff Girls stuff. It's super strong, and this DC run was also pretty strong. It's hard to miss with the Powerpuff Girls, to be honest with you. Alright, let's go on to the next. Staying with the theme of cartoons. We got some Marvel goodness here of the Disney Afternoon Collection. So we got Darkwing Duck, Bonkers, Goof Troop, Tailspins in here. Clearly homaging like a Batman or something here, right? I mean, he pretty much is Batman to begin with, but just his splash very much looks like a Batman comic. So we got John Blair Moore on writing and pencils, Michael Jones on ink, Dave Sharp a letter, and Ed Lazzari on colors. So I can tell from the previous books that we were looking at, the outlines on these characters are a lot thinner compared to those books. And I think that in cartoon comics, those big, fat, bold outlines are what makes them work better than other comics. So really leaning into that. This is kind of missing that. There is a bigger outline or a bolder outline, but it should be way thicker than that, I think. I was a fan of the Disney Afternoon stuff. I'm really not a big Disney guy, to be honest with you. A lot of that stuff I don't care for, but this era of Disney I really liked. A lot of these games as well that they had put out at the time, the NES games. So your DuckTales and all that kind of stuff, man, it's so good. So we got Roger Brown on story. Is that Cosme is his name? Cosmo? I can't really see what this says. I think it says Cosme. It's a weird name. Quarter on pencils, and then we got Michael James on inks again, and then Dave Sharp on letters. So it looks like it's the same team outside of the story. Oh, so these are just one-pagers, I see. So Joe Messerly is on this, and he was in one of the books that we looked at earlier. This is a Marvel book. Man, I can't remember what we had looked at, and he was the artist on there. It might be that Tex Avery book. Let me look. We looked at this like at the start of the stream. Yep. There he is. Jim Massera. So apparently he was at Marvel at one point in time, and this was a Dark Horse book, so that's kind of interesting. See a little bit of crossover here. Little Power Rangers light up sword. Those telescoping swords were always just terrible, like the lightsabers especially, just awful. They'd always just break, or they, wouldn't extend out when you try to get them to extend out. And if anything, you would just, smack your brother or sister or whatever with them and just leave welts all over their bodies. Like those things were just prone to have kids just beat the shit out of each other with them. So we got Janet Gilbert, Rick Stassi, Joe Messerly, there he is again. And then we got Caroline Wells, and then Ed Lazari. Bonkers was an interesting TV show. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Kind of sticking to the theme of cartoon comics for the sake of keeping everything coherent here. And then we have one more cartoon book, another back issue bin, and then the rest of these books are all newer books from my pull box. So I think this was Cow and Chicken number 0, I want to say. So this is actually a compilation book. So I wonder why this was free. So down here in the credits it says, all the stories previously published in Cartoon Networks Presents number 6, Scooby-Doo number 6, The Flintstones and the Jetsons number 4. So it looks like this is probably like an ash can preview sort of thing that they gave away at cons, gave away at comic shops to give away for free to get people in to buy these books. Michael Krager on writer, Glenn Barr on artist, Phil Felix on letter, Bernie Merlaut on color, and we got Bramlin Taggart on editor. Yeah, the inking in this and the penciling in this, honestly, I think even the coloring, like whoever, like the team on this book, like whoever hired that team, like really put this to justice, because I honestly think, and this is something that I talk about with Space Ghost to a certain extent in the comic books, like it looks better in the comic book than it does in the TV show, and I kind of lean with that in this direction. It's just like, I don't know, man. It's like the art style, like these bold outlines are thicker for sure than the cartoon. But just the style that the characters are drawn, it's like a weird mix between Cow and Chicken and Ren and Stimpy. Which obviously they're contemporaries, but just something just really works for me with this art style in this comic. Incredible cartooning. Fucking rascal. Terrible game that is. It's absolutely terrible. That's one of those things, because it's like, I'm a cool 90s kid with my ray gun. And you suck kids in, you know, at a Blockbuster or whatever, to rent it. And it ends up being just the worst game. So, of course, Super Cow making an appearance here. Alright, so now we're rolling into Scooby-Doo. Chris Duffy, Tim Harkins, Patricia Mulville, and Bramlin Taggart's on this again. So Bramlin's probably just is the editor. I had previously looked through this book, and when I had seen the Scooby-Doo stuff, it looks like the Batman the Animated Series. Or at least drawn in that style, and I get it, because I think from what you know, Bruce Timm was trying to do with the art style for that series, he was taking what guys like Toth were doing in Hanna-Barbera, and then he simplified that even more, and that stuff was already pretty simple to begin with, and then he just doubled down on that, and that's how you get that Bruce Timm look. And obviously it's like the Batman the Animated Series came out and it put a stamp on cartoons, and everything after that pretty much tried to rip it off in terms of the aesthetic. And you definitely can see that, especially in like the female faces, it has a lot of that look. Jinko jeans, Lord have mercy. I've been seeing people rocking the Jinko jeans again because it's like weird mid-90s stuff is in, early 2000s stuff is in currently. So it's like seeing people walking around with like Jinko jeans and stuff on, being like, those didn't age well then, and they're not going to age well now. So it's like, just stop. Michael Kupperman, Bill Ray. I'm familiar with Bill. Stephen DeFenso, also familiar with him. John Costanza, familiar with him. He did work on, man, is it Beavis and Butthead, or is it Ren and Stimpy? It might be Ren and Stimpy that he letters on. Bernie Malott, and then same editor. And again, just something with this cartooning in this book just really works for me, man. It looks better than the cartoon. I mean, obviously, like the cartoon in the 60s was pretty limited, and they drew it for speed and worked for speed to get the cartoons done. So like the drawings are always going to be kind of wonky, the animation's kind of wonky, so on and so forth. So they're not going to be able to take the time and effort to put into the aesthetic like you can with the comic book. But seeing like the Jetsons and older Hanna-Barbera stuff like drawn to this level, while still keeping the aesthetic, I think is super impressive. Crazy stuff, man. And speak of the devil, Batman the Animated Series, Yabba Dabba Doom. And they're even leaning into that. So I guess let's go on to the next one. Last cartoon comic that I got, Rocko #2. So I think that I have like a more modern Rocko collection that Nickelodeon had put out, Viacom put out a couple years ago. But in terms of single issues, it's the only one that I have. You don't see them very often. So we got Jim Lewowski on writer, Darren Ock on the pencil, and we got Gary Fields on inks, and Bob Sharon color, and Dave Sharp, whatever that means, Nods, Nodoze. That was his position on the book. Whatever the hell that means. I don't know. Yeah, and this is something that I had looked at previously, and my biggest beef with this comic is really the color. I think that with Rocko especially, the color should be a little more like saturated, and you know, it kind of pops up off the page. This is definitely a lot more toned down in terms of you know, the saturation again. And I think it kind of takes you out, because like the coloring on like the Count Chicken comic that we just looked at and that Tex Avery comic that we looked at, just absolutely amazing. And this is definitely a step down from it. Not that it's bad, but it could be better. Some pretty good cartooning in it. Like, this is a great image here. Fun little splash page. I never was the biggest fan of Rocko growing up. I mean, I like it. I think I have like a couple of DVDs, but I don't know, man. There's just something about it that I'm not too fond of. I think it might be just like the melancholiness of the cartoon, because Rocko is just very like depressed all the time, and I don't know. It's like one of those things that as a kid I really couldn't connect to it, and even as an adult, like I go back and watch it, And the same thing with like SpongeBob. It's like you watch it as an adult and you pick up a lot of themes and references and things like that that you wouldn't as a kid. That definitely plays a lot into Rocko as well. But still, it just doesn't land. It just doesn't land for me. All right, let's jump to the next. We're done with our cartoon comics here, so now we're going to be moving into some weirder stuff. So we got Weird Melvin. So I think I may have an issue of this in a bin somewhere. It definitely reminds me a lot of like Don Simpson, Megaton Man. Definitely super big, beefy characters, like over-exaggerated features. This is Mark Hansen, so he definitely comes from the same era as Don Simpson. Maybe he's a little younger. But you know, look like these are self-published books that he was putting out on his own. I had looked through this a little bit, and he did everything in this, writing, lettering, all that kind of stuff. And man, just the cartooning in this is just incredible. I prefer black and white books, mainly because I'm colorblind. If you guys didn't already know that, but there's some books that I think just would work better colored, and I think this is one of them. Because like you have like this Rat Fink style, you like monsters and like that hot rod sort of look. And you know, when you think of that, you think of like bright bold colors that kind of like pop up off a car, pop off the page. You're kind of missing that here. And when you get into like this wild, like cartoony stuff where it's like it's super detailed and there's a lot of things going on, I think some of the detail gets lost because it's strictly just in black and white. But when you throw color onto the page, you know, you can do variants different colors on different spots. So it helps different areas of the page actually pop out, and it's easier to read as an image. Because some of the stuff can be overwhelming. Like I think like this panel here especially, how it's like we have this building here and this dude on top of it with like this tree in the background, and then these guys, this kind of gives it a cluttered look. But the cartooning in it is top tier. Definitely gonna say that. And you have to be a top tier cartoonist to be able to draw like this and exaggerate your, you know, your features on your characters. But I am definitely going to sit down and read through this and see if the writing is any good. I have not bothered to do that yet. I kind of just flipped through this real quick just to kind of see the art. So it looks like he was a Michigan guy. So it looks like these were just some one-offs that he did. Which I think I'm going to start doing something similar to this, because I have a couple of characters that can work in smaller stints. I've been kind of saving those stories and characters for the anthology, and then everything else I'm, you know, spinning off into their own books. Because I think that the other two characters that I have, they don't work in longer spurts. They work in like 6 pages max, and that's kind of where that's going to stay. But I think that I could do little one-page stories like this, just funny little, just in and out comics. All right, I think we get it here. All these kind of look the same. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Again, Mark Hansen. All right, so now we're getting into some newer books that have come out recently. This is one of my favorite series running right now. I think there's a lot of creativity behind it. I really like the illustration in it. I like the story. I like the creativity behind it. This logo treatment is just absolutely fantastic. But you got a masked murderer and some like S&M gear, just kind of going around and chopping people up. Can't go wrong with that, man. That's like the kind of book that you should be wanting to read. Sort of like in a club here. Oh, we didn't, how dare I. Tyler Boss, Adreno Toritulci, and we got Hassan Atmane. Man, I'm sorry I'm butchering your guys' names. Dylan Todd, editing, or designing. And the design of this book is just incredible. We've looked at a couple of issues of this in the past, and I really like how they run this like computer aesthetic into their images. Kind of like old AOL sort of look. And they continue to, and as the issues roll on here, they put more and more of that look into their issues, and that was like the very first issue that they put out, they leaned into it on like one page, and then it kind of went away. And then as they've been doing more and more issues, this whole like kind of like computer aesthetic has been coming back, which I'm a big fan of. And that was, again, one of my biggest gripes on that first issue was like, give me more of that. I want more of that. And that's what we're getting here, and it's awesome. Super creative. I really like the color job in this as well. Very unique. It's very much like a European style comic, but in the vein of like a, I don't know, a thriller, I guess I would categorize this comic as. It's not horror, it's not outlaw, there's really no gore or anything like that in this. It's very tame, but as you can see, it's like this is a dude in this S&M mask. He's chasing this lady, and they don't get super graphic in here. Like, you get a little bit of stab in here, and that's about it. But yeah, in terms of like gore and things like that, they don't get into that really. Let your imagination kind of play through, but still, man, it's just like stuff like this. It's just so cool. Got some nudity there on that one. But not much. Alright. That was You'll Do Bad Things number 3. I'm not sure how many issues of this they're going to be running through, but I kind of hope that they... I've assumed that they're at least going to be doing 5, but they don't have like a X out of 5, X out of 10. So I'm assuming that they're just going to be running on this until they decide to wrap it up. We'll save that for another time. Alright, Bitterroot, number 3 out of 4. So we got Walker Brown and Green on here. Sanford Green is just absolutely amazing. He's one of my favorites currently. I think he's super underrated. And this has been one of my favorite books to read. And it's getting better as the... issues have been going on. The very first issue of this I honestly thought was kind of weak, and I even had contemplated pulling it. I thought that the art aesthetic looked cool, the coloring looked cool, and everything like that, but just the story and just kind of how it unfolded, I was just kind of like underwhelmed by it. Not necessarily there wasn't a lot of action in it, but looking at the cover compared to what you got in the book really didn't click with me. And then they kind of leaned more into it once you got into later issues. The previous run of Bitterroot I thought was amazing. This is the same, but it's a little different, which obviously it should be. But I see some like Giffen, some Keith Giffen influence there with the glasses. I can't remember the name of that character at Lobo, but has like that same glasses. Or like the mom from Johnny Bravo wears similar sunglasses. Man, this is awesome. Dave of our West Coast Avengers was saying that this book really reminded him of Sinners. So if you were, I'm going to shut this off because of the glossy page. If I can turn it off there. He was saying that it really reminded him of Sinners. So if that's the case and you guys were a fan of that movie, this might be a good comic for you guys to pick up. I haven't seen that yet. I typically don't watch like newer movies. I just don't have the time or the care to sit and watch something like that. So probably gonna happen, but that's what he had said. So if, like I said, if you're a fan, you might want to check this out. This is a cool drawing. Looks like we probably just got a bunch of ads and stuff here in the back. Well, Mike Allred did a cover, and it looks like we got Maria Wolf that also did a cover. I think her black and white work is incredible. It's better than the colored stuff for sure. So if you guys haven't checked out Maria Wolf, her black and white stuff's insane. All right. That was Bitterroot number 3 of 5. I think that's where we're probably going to wrap it up. We went for almost an hour, about 45 minutes here. I have a bunch of things that I gotta do. I shot a video before I streamed. That is going to be more about the comic making process, not necessarily like making a comic and how to make a comic. It's more about mindset of an artist, what you need to do to kind of get through tasks, set goals for yourself, that sort of thing. So I think it really applies to anybody, not just artists and creators. So if that's something that's going to be an interest of you, that video will be out later this week. I got to sit down and edit that bad boy and get it done. So I'll probably end up editing that tomorrow and get it put out. It's probably going to be like a short 10-15 minute video. It's going to be a 3-part series. So you can look forward to that. And I think that you guys will just get a lot out of it, just in terms of like advice, life experience, and things like that I have to offer that might be of interest to everybody. So with that being said, I'm gonna head out here. I got errands and things like that to do, got videos to edit, got pages to draw. So I'm gonna go ahead and get back to it and work on comics. Just keep an eye out. The video, it might be out tomorrow, it might be out Friday. That's to be determined, but it's gonna be out towards the tail end of this week. So just keep an eye out for it. And we got